he wasn't here today, so obviously I think he probably had something important to do or something came up.
And we're just focusing on who's here right now.
The James Harden situation has gone upside down since her last update. After initially returning to training camp and practicing with his teammates, Harden has completely stopped going to practice altogether. Hey, what's happening, everyone? This is Swish Culture. Whether you like him or not, James Harden is still a superstar in this league, and if things are as they seem and he's deciding not to play for the Sixers, then this is a pretty big deal that has huge implications for the East as well as for Western teams. Initially, it looked like Harden was going to give up his hard stance against the Sixers and actually play, and that was in part because the league rule stated that a player has to honor his contract and render services to his team. If he doesn't do that, he has to pay a fine for every game that he misses, regular or preseason, and there's also a smaller fine for missing practices. Now, Harden has a history behind him that makes things difficult for all three sides in the equation. That's the Clippers, the Sixers, and Harden himself. Both teams are steadfast in their expectations out of a trade, and with the lack of interest from other teams, the only one expected to gain anything out of this in the worst case scenario is the Clippers, because they really don't need to do anything. They haven't lost anything and can pull out of trade conversations at any point in time. There are still rumors of a trade potential to Miami Heat, and while that could work, it doesn't seem Miami is interested. But I'm going to take a look and see how that would work if the Heat decided they'd give Harden a shot. So a good bit of detail to cover here, but before that, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content. So without further delay, let's get to it. So the last time I covered this topic, Harden had skipped out on media day, but showed up to the team's practice a couple of days later. He practiced with the team, and according to media outlets, the interaction was pretty anticlimactic. It seemed like just another day at practice for Harden. I figured that Harden was aware of the NBA rule, or his agent made him aware, and he decided he'd soften his stance and would play for the Sixers. But I should have known better. Harden has missed 2 practices at this point. After the first missed practice, Joel Embiid was asked why he thought Harden was missing, and gave this answer.
I didn't know if anything was going on because, he's been here, so he wasn't here today, so obviously I think he probably had something important to do or something came up. But, guys know what it is. I've always, went on the floor and, led by example just by playing hard and, pushing myself and also pushing them. And that's what we did today. We played together, we competed, we pushed each other.
He obviously doesn't want to get in the middle of the Sixer Harden / Morey Harden issue because he has problems with neither side. This is the team that drafted him. Philly loves him and he's trying to win a championship. I should have known better though that Harden would do this, as his teammates said before that he strongly believed in his position, and this latest piece of the puzzle seems to fit that narrative despite what's coming out as his official reason for missing practice. Officially, Harden is away from the team due to what was termed a personal matter, according to the team. Now, the rules state that any practice that James Harden misses, he could be fined $2,500. Missing consecutive practices adds an additional $2,500 to the prior amount, so the second practice he misses could result in a $5,000 fine for that practice alone. Considering the team's statement, however, this might fall under consent and he may not have to pay. If it isn't considered to be under consent, that $2,500 is a small fee to start, but could potentially end in a disastrous amount of cost due to the method by which this is compounded. We're talking about $100,000 in fines for missing around 10 practices, although teams don't practice nearly as much in season, so that portion of the fines likely won't get that high. This is nothing, however, compared to the cost of missing a game, as Harden could be looking at almost $400,000 for every preseason or regular season game that he misses. To be exact, every game Harden misses without the team's consent, that's $389,082 that Harden would be fined. To this point, the Sixers have played 4 preseason games, none of which Harden has played, meaning Harden likely owes the league $1,556,328 in games, plus another $15,000 for 3 missed practices. That is a massive amount of change, and considering Harden's contract is worth just over $34 million a year for a total of $68,600,000, if he decides to forego every single game this year, on top of missing the preseason games, he comes out with just $1 million at the end of the year. That's a cool $33 million in fines, although I doubt it would get that high. For reference, Ben Simmons, who is the most fined player in league history, was fined a total of $19 million for his saga of holding out against the Sixers until he was traded in mid-season. I highly doubt Harden will want to do that, but when he signed that extension, that put him in a very tough spot. This gave the Sixers the clear advantage. Daryl Morey was smart to have him sign the extension because that gave the Sixers complete control. They will basically not have to pay James Harden a dime if he doesn't play, so that extension bought them time, something which Harden doesn't have, which they can use as leverage against any potential trade partner. Additionally, CBA rules prevent James Harden from becoming a free agent unless he starts showing up for practices and games. The rules state that a player who withholds playing services called for by a player contract for more than 30 days after the start of the last season covered by his player contract shall be deemed to not have completed his player contract by rendering the playing services called for thereunder. Accordingly, such a player shall not be a veteran free agent and shall not be entitled to negotiate or sign a player contract with any other professional basketball team unless and until the team for which the player has played expressly agrees otherwise. So the Sixers can prevent James Harden from becoming a free agent if he doesn't play for the team this year. It also came out that the Sixers are willing to give up James Harden for Terrence Mann and 2 first-round picks. The Clippers have responded with a hard no to that request, to which the Sixers followed up saying that the Clippers aren't serious about the trade. The Clippers really only need Harden to compete in the playoffs, so despite the leverage the Sixers have over Harden, this only matters if Harden decides to play. If he does, the Sixers are more likely to harden their trade stance. If he doesn't play, then this is hurting the Sixers as well as Harden. If they get poor trade value for Harden, then this could become even worse. Joel Embiid could decide he's going to leave the franchise because this seems to be a recurring issue as the front office is unable to hold on to key players. This is the problem Morey is trying to avoid. The problem the Clippers are trying to avoid is what the Sixers are going through right now. They don't want to give up Mann and 2 first-round picks for a player that might demand a trade at the end of the next season. Harden to the Clippers would make them the definition of a championship or bust team. If Harden after 1 year doesn't feel comfortable, he clearly doesn't care about contractual obligations and could demand a trade to go somewhere else. So where else could Harden go to win a championship? So James Harden skipped practice and was in Houston. Could it be for the Rockets? Interestingly enough, the Heat were in Houston at the same time, so the statement was made. The Heat are in Houston on Friday. James Harden is in Houston, not Philadelphia. Connect the dots. Ira Winderman of the Sun-Sentinel responded with this. Actually, I'll do you one better. I'll connect dots that will give you all the perspective needed. The Heat's City Edition jerseys this season will feature the word culture across the chest. Can you think of a single thing more incongruous than James Harden in a Heat uniform that reads culture? That would be the NBA definition of juxtaposition. Besides, the Heat have made it known privately that such is not the direction the team is considering. Now, could it make sense as a 1-year rental? Perhaps. But that would add a whole new element to culture. Now, could the Heat enter the equation as part of a multi-team deal involving Harden? That's another story. In my prior video, I mentioned that the Miami Heat would have zero interest in James Harden. This pretty much confirms my suspicions about whether or not they would add a player like Harden to the team, as his behavior is likely viewed as toxic by such an organization that takes a different approach to winning as compared to most other teams in the league. That being said, that 1-year option in the Heat could be a possibility, but obviously the Heat would not be interested in giving up anything specific to acquire James Harden, no matter how good the matchup looks on paper. In my opinion, the Clippers could throw Philly a bone, that is, Bones Highland, along with a couple of first-rounders. This way they get to keep Terrence Mann, and the Sixers get a talented young player who's got something to prove and could form a dynamic backcourt with Maxey. The Clippers getting Harden wouldn't have a need for Bones with Westbrook coming off the bench. After what I saw Bones do in the playoffs for the Nuggets, while he's no Jamal Murray, he's only going to get better this year, and the Sixers would be foolish not to take that offer if given. Let me know if you guys think there are any other trade options for Harden that could work. Post your thoughts in the comments below, but before that, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thank you for watching. Till next time. Swish.